Standing at the base of the Great Pyramid, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe. How could something so massive, so precise, have been built over 4,000 years ago without the technology we rely on today? The same question echoes when you walk the length of a Roman aqueduct, its arches stretching for miles, delivering water with a precision that rivals modern systems. These aren't just ancient relics, they're proof of a lost era of engineering genius, crafted by minds whose names history has nearly erased. We're taught about pharaohs and emperors, but what about the visionaries who turned their ambitions into stone and mortar, the ones who calculated, designed, and directed the construction of wonders that still leave us speechless? This is the story of the forgotten civil engineers of the ancient world, the original builders whose innovations laid the groundwork for civilizations to thrive. From the labyrinthine sewers beneath Mohenjo-Daro to the earthquake-resistant temples of ancient Greece, these unsung pioneers solved problems we still grapple with today. They mastered materials, defied geographical challenges, and created structures that stood the test of time, all without blueprints or bulldozers. Their secrets weren't just about strength or scale. They understood balance, acoustics, even how to manipulate perception, like the Parthenon's subtle curves designed to fool the eye into seeing perfection. So why don't we know their names? Why have their achievements been overshadowed by kings and conquests? That's the mystery we're unraveling. Over the next minutes, we'll step into their world, tracing the fingerprints they left behind in stone and soil. You'll see how their techniques, some so advanced we've only recently rediscovered them, shaped the world we live in. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a tribute to the problem solvers, the dreamers who looked at a blank horizon and saw what no one else could. Ready to meet them? Let's begin. Consider the sheer ambition of stacking 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing several tons, into a perfect geometric form without cranes, lasers, or even the wheel. The Egyptians didn't just build pyramids, they turned mathematics into monuments, aligning them with celestial precision to mirror the heavens on earth. But their genius wasn't unique. Across the ancient world, engineers were solving problems with a blend of artistry and science that still leaves us questioning our assumptions about progress. Take Roman concrete, for example. While modern concrete crumbles in seawater, theirs grew stronger over time thanks to a secret ingredient, volcanic ash, that created chemical reactions lasting centuries. These weren't accidents, they were breakthroughs born from relentless experimentation and observation. What's even more remarkable is how these engineers tailored their solutions to the land itself. In Peru, the Inca built Machu Picchu's terraces without mortar, carving stones so precisely that earthquakes make them shift and settle without collapsing. Meanwhile, in India, the stepwells of Chand Bayori weren't just water reservoirs, they were inverted temples, with 3,500 symmetrically arranged steps descending into the earth, blending utility with sacred geometry. Every culture had its own signature. The Greeks engineered theaters to amplify whispers to the back row, while the Persians designed underground aqueducts called Canats that tapped into mountain springs miles away. But here's what truly connects these marvels. They weren't just about function. The ancient engineer was part architect, part artist, part priest. A Roman aqueduct wasn't merely a water delivery system. Its arches were designed to awe, proclaiming the empire's mastery over nature. The pyramid's smooth limestone casing, now long gone, once reflected sunlight like beacons, turning grief for the dead into a spectacle of immortality. These builders understood that engineering wasn't just about solving problems, it was about elevating human experience, leaving legacies that whispered to the future. And perhaps that's why their work endures. They didn't just construct, they spoke in a language of stone and shadow, proportion and light, inviting us to listen across millennia. The Great Pyramid of Giza doesn't just dominate the skyline, it defies logic. Every block, every angle, every corridor whispers a question. How did ancient engineers achieve such impossible precision? Modern laser measurements reveal that its base is leveled to within just 2 centimeters across an area larger than 10 football fields. The sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, a feat requiring knowledge of true north without compasses. Some scholars believe they used the pole star, tracking its movement over years, while others point to the ingenious use of the autumnal equinox, when the sun casts shadows that reveal exact east and west. But alignment was just the beginning. Inside, the pyramid hides a labyrinth of precision, the descending passage aimed directly at the polar star of its time, acting as a celestial time capsule. The king's chamber, built with granite slabs weighing up to 80 tons, was positioned with such acoustic care that some theorists believe it amplified specific sound frequencies, perhaps for rituals we can only guess at. Then there's the mystery of the pyramid's casing stones, originally polished white limestone, fitted so tightly that a razor blade couldn't slip between them. These weren't just aesthetic choices, they were calculated. The casing's angle, 51 degrees, wasn't arbitrary. It's the exact slope where the pyramid's height and base perimeter ratio equals 2 times pi, embedding advanced mathematical concepts into stone. Some argue this was intentional, a way to encode knowledge of the Earth's dimensions, since the pyramid's perimeter divided by its height mirrors the Earth's circumference to radius ratio. Others suggest it's proof of a lost system of sacred geometry where numbers held spiritual meaning, but perhaps the most startling detail isn't the pyramid's grandeur, it's the humility behind it. Unlike later monuments, there are no boastful inscriptions, no names of architects carved into its walls. The builders left behind only tools, copper chisels, wooden levels, and curious rod-like instruments that may have been used for star tracking. Their legacy isn't in words, but in the silent perfection of their craft. And that's what makes the Great Pyramid not just a tomb, but a testament to human ingenuity, a puzzle waiting for us to piece together, one celestial clue at a time. Rome's aqueducts weren't just feats of engineering, they were acts of defiance. Imagine channeling millions of gallons of water daily across mountains, valleys, and rivers without pumps, without electricity, relying solely on gravity's unerring pull. The Romans didn't just build waterways, they bent geography to their will. Take the Aqua Claudia, for example. Stretching over 45 miles, it dropped only 100 feet in elevation from start to finish, a gradient so slight, just 1 foot per mile, that a single miscalculation would have left Rome's fountains dry. Yet, with nothing but chorobates, their wooden leveling instruments, and an intimate understanding of hydraulics, engineers achieved a precision that would challenge modern tools. But the aqueduct's true brilliance lay in their adaptability. In Segovia, Spain, the 2-tiered arches soar over rugged terrain. Their granite blocks cut so precisely they need no mortar, a technique borrowed from local Iberian builders. Meanwhile, in Carthage, engineers incorporated siphons to navigate sudden dips, using lead pipes to force water uphill against gravity's grip. These weren't cookie-cutter projects. Each aqueduct was a bespoke solution tailored to the land's whispers. And when obstacles arose, like the Anio Valley near Rome, they didn't detour, they built towering arcades, some reaching 100 feet high, turning necessity into spectacle. Yet for all their technical mastery, the aqueduct's greatest impact wasn't structural, it was societal. Public fountains, baths, and even sewage systems transformed Roman life, turning water from a privilege into a right. The Aqua Pia, Rome's first aqueduct, didn't just quench thirst. It fueled bakeries, tanneries, and the empire's famed baths, where citizens of all classes mingled under vaulted ceilings. Water became democracy in liquid form. And then there's the symbolism. The arches weren't merely functional. They marched across the countryside like an army of stone, proclaiming Rome's dominion over chaos. When Pompey's theater needed a water supply, engineers didn't hide the pipes, they flaunted them, embedding the aqueduct into the facade as a reminder. This city didn't just conquer people, it conquered nature itself. What's haunting, though, is how much we've forgotten. The Romans documented their laws, their wars, but the names of the aqueduct's architects lost. We know more about the emperors who commissioned them than the minds who designed them. Yet their legacy pulses beneath our feet. Modern cities still rely on gravity-fed systems inspired by Roman principles. And when engineers today face uneven terrain, they study the aqueduct's playbook. These silent arches aren't relics, they're teachers, and if you listen closely, the water still murmurs their lessons, that the greatest engineering isn't about force but harmony, not control but collaboration with the Earth's unyielding laws. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the clouds cling to mountain peaks, Machu Picchu stands as a silent sermon in stone. Its walls, assembled without mortar, fit together with such precision that the seams vanish to the naked eye. Earthquakes, a constant threat in this volatile region, send modern buildings crumbling. Yet these ancient stones merely shift and settle, then lock back into place as if guided by an invisible hand. The secret lies in the Incas' reverence for the very rock they shaped. Unlike other cultures that forced stone into submission with chisels and hammers, the Inca approached their material as a partner. They studied each boulder's natural grain, its fractures and weaknesses, then carved mating surfaces so exact that friction alone became their glue. Some believe they used simple tools, river-polished pebbles to grind surfaces flat, bronze alloy chisels harder than the local andesite. Others point to the peculiar Corihuera china, a legendary alloy of gold and other metals said to soften stone when applied, like a key fitting into a lock. But the most compelling theory isn't about tools at all, it's about time. Inca stonemasons likely worked each block for months, fitting them repeatedly, adjusting until the stones clicked together with a sound like ceramic. The result, walls where even today, 5 centuries later, you can't slip a credit card between the joints. Yet Machu Picchu's genius extends beyond its masonry. The entire city is a hydrological masterpiece. Terraces funnel rainwater through underground channels, preventing erosion while irrigating crops. The Temple of the Condor's natural rock formations amplify ceremonial chants, blending acoustics with sacred symbolism. And those iconic staircases, carved directly into mountain slopes, their risers vary in height, not from error, but because the Inca engineers calculated the ideal step for ascending thin air at altitude. Every element served multiple purposes: beauty, utility, spirituality. What's haunting is how little we know of the minds behind this symphony in stone. The Inca left no written records, no blueprints, just the stones themselves, whispering their techniques to those who listen closely. Modern engineers still study Machu Picchu's earthquake-resistant designs, adapting ancient principles for contemporary seismic zones. Perhaps that's the truest testament to these builders. Their work doesn't just belong to the past. It's a conversation across centuries, proving that the most enduring innovations aren't forced upon nature, but born from understanding its rhythms. Mesopotamia's ziggurates didn't just scrape the sky, they defied it. Rising from the flat plains between the Tigris and Euphrates, These towering step temples were more than religious monuments. They were the ancient world's first skyscrapers, engineered to bridge earth and heaven. Take the Great Ziggurat of Ur, built around 2100 years before the Common Era. Its core wasn't just mud brick, it was a geometric rebellion against gravity, with layers of baked bricks coated in bitumen, a natural tar that waterproofed the structure against Mesopotamia's punishing rains. Each tier narrowed as it climbed, redistributing weight with a precision that kept these colossal structures standing for millennia. But the real marvel wasn't just height, it was foresight. Mesopotamian engineers embedded reed mats between brick layers, acting as shock absorbers to stabilize the structure during earthquakes. They designed intricate drainage channels to divert water away from the core, knowing that unchecked erosion could topple their ambitions. Even the bricks themselves were engineered. Those exposed to the elements were fired at higher temperatures for durability, while interior bricks stayed sun-dried to save labor. This wasn't guesswork, it was calculated mastery of materials, a testament to generations of accumulated knowledge. What's striking is how these innovations echoed far beyond Mesopotamia. The ziggurat step design reappeared in Egypt's earliest pyramids, like Djoser's step pyramid, and even influenced the temples of Mesoamerica centuries later. The builders of Ur didn't just create a temple, they wrote a blueprint for sacred architecture that crossed continents and cultures. And unlike later monuments, ziggurats weren't built to glorify rulers. They were communal projects constructed by laborers who left fingerprints in the bricks, tiny signatures of the anonymous engineers who turned clay and tar into stairways to the divine. Yet for all their ingenuity, ziggurats held a deeper purpose. Their staircases weren't just functional, they were spiritual pathways designed so priests could ascend symbolically closer to the gods. The temple at the summit wasn't merely a room, it was a cosmic antenna, a place where heaven and earth were believed to meet. Modern skyscrapers may dwarf them in height, but they've yet to match their mystique. When you stand before the ruins of Ur's ziggurat today, you're not just seeing an ancient building, you're witnessing humanity's first audacious reach for the infinite, brick by sacred brick. Beneath the scorching sun of the Indus Valley, a revolution in urban living was quietly unfolding 5,000 years ago. While other ancient cultures were erecting pyramids and ziggurats, the engineers of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were solving a different puzzle: how to build cities that functioned like living organisms. Their streets didn't just meander, they formed perfect grids, intersecting at right angles with a precision that would make modern city planners envious. Each brick, whether found in Harappa or 200 miles away in Mohenjo-Daro, measured the same ratio 4:2:1, as if stamped from an ancient assembly line. This wasn't coincidence, it was standardization on a scale unmatched until the Industrial Revolution. Walk through these ruins today, and you'll notice something startlingly modern beneath your feet. Covered drains running alongside every major street, connected to homes with terracotta pipes that funneled waste away from living spaces. These weren't crude ditches, but carefully engineered channels with inspection holes for maintenance, sloping just enough to let gravity do the work. In a world where medieval Europeans would still be dumping chamber pots into streets centuries later, the Indus Valley civilizations had mastered sanitation systems that kept their cities clean for generations. Some houses even featured the world's earliest known flush toilets, with wooden seats positioned above brick-lined drains that emptied into the municipal sewage network. But the genius didn't stop underground. The entire city was designed to breathe. Wide main streets allowed cooling winds to circulate, while inner lanes branched off like capillaries, ensuring every home had access to air and light. At the heart of Mohenjo-Daro stood the Great Bath, a monumental public tank lined with bitumen to prevent leaks. flanked by rooms that may have served as early saunas or ritual cleansing spaces. Nearby, a massive granary with clever air vents kept harvests dry in the humid climate, its raised platform protecting grain from floods. Every element served multiple purposes, beauty meeting utility, spirituality intertwining with practicality. What's most remarkable is what we don't find: no grand palaces towering over slums, no evidence of ruling elites hoarding resources. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, where architecture screamed of pharaohs and gods, Indus Valley cities whisper of collective intelligence. Their engineers worked anonymously, leaving behind no statues or inscriptions, only the quiet perfection of their designs. Modern analysis reveals their advanced understanding of hydraulics and materials science. They mixed gypsum into mortar to prevent salt erosion and positioned wells within easy reach of every neighborhood. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how they built these cities, but why their knowledge vanished. When Indus Valley civilization declined around 1900 years before the Common Era, their urban blueprints were forgotten for millennia. Only in the 1920s did archaeologists begin piecing together their achievements. Realizing these ancient planners had solved problems, we're still grappling with: how to create equitable urban spaces, how to balance growth with sustainability. Today, as megacities choke on pollution and sprawl, the ghosts of Mohenjo-Daro offer a silent challenge. Civilization isn't measured by monuments, but by how it cares for its most ordinary citizens. One brick, one drain, one thoughtful street at a time. High on the slopes of the Peloponnese, the theater of Epidaurus waits, a 2,000-year-old acoustic miracle where a single dropped coin on stage rings clear as a bell to spectators in the very last row. This wasn't magic, it was mathematics carved into stone. Greek engineers didn't just build amphitheaters, they composed symphonies in geometry, where every step, every curve, every material served a purpose. The secret, a perfect marriage of shape and science. The semicircular design funneled sound waves upward, while the stepped limestone seats acted like acoustic filters, absorbing low-frequency murmurs while amplifying the crisp highs of an actor's voice. Even the spacing between seats was calculated precisely enough to prevent echoes but wide enough to let sound ripple freely. But the genius went deeper than layout. The orchestra, the circular performance area at the theater's heart, was often paved with crushed quartz or polished marble, materials that reflected sound rather than swallowing it. Some researchers believe the Greeks even tuned their theaters to specific vocal ranges, adjusting the dimensions to resonate best with the natural pitch of tragic dialogue. At Dodona's theater, engineers embedded bronze vases beneath the seats, acting as primitive Helmholtz resonators to enhance certain frequencies. These weren't accidents, they were the result of generations observing how sound danced across landscapes, then replicating those principles in stone. What's astonishing is how these ancient acousticians balanced art and physics. The slope of Epidaurus seating, a 34-degree incline, wasn't just for sightlines. It created an acoustic sweet spot where voices could travel unimpeded, free from the interference that plagues modern flat-floored venues. Even the surrounding hills played a role, forming a natural backdrop that captured and reflected sound like an ancient soundboard. Modern engineers have tried to replicate these effects with microphones and speakers, yet still can't match the purity of a human voice soaring through Epidaurus' untouched geometry. Perhaps most moving is how democratic this acoustic perfection was. Unlike royal boxes in later eras, where only elites enjoyed clear acoustics, Greek theaters ensured every citizen, whether philosopher or fisherman, experienced performances with equal clarity. The architects didn't just solve a technical challenge, they encoded their values into the very stones, proving that even in antiquity, engineering could be a tool for unity. Today, as performers still test Epidaurus' legendary acoustics without amplification, the message echoes across millennia. True innovation doesn't just serve function, it elevates the human spirit. 1800 years before modern seismographs, a bronze vessel stood in the imperial court of China's Han Dynasty, its 8 dragon heads poised to reveal secrets whispered by the earth itself. This was Zhang Heng's Seismoscope, a device so advanced it detected an earthquake 400 miles away while the courtiers in Luoyang felt nothing. When one of the dragons suddenly spat its bronze ball into the waiting frog's mouth below, officials scoffed until days later, messengers galloped in with news of tremors in the exact direction the device had indicated. The genius of this invention wasn't just its accuracy, but its elegance. Inside the ornate vessel, historians believe a pendulum hung suspended, connected to cleverly balanced levers. When seismic waves rippled through the ground, the pendulum swayed, tripping a mechanism that released only the dragon head aligned with the quake's origin. No electricity, no gears, just pure physics harnessed to serve humanity. Some scholars suggest the device even used inertia principles similar to those in modern seismometers, where a stationary mass resists motion while the surrounding structure moves. But Zhang Heng's seismoscope was more than a scientific tool. It was a cultural manifesto. In an era when earthquakes were seen as divine displeasure, this bronze marvel reframed disasters as measurable phenomena. The Han Dynasty didn't just gain an early warning system, it gained empowerment. Provincial governors could now prepare for aftershocks or coordinate relief efforts before riders arrived. The seismoscope's very existence proclaimed that nature's chaos could be decoded. Its patterns wrestled into something approaching predictability. What's haunting is how much we've lost. The original seismoscope vanished into history, and the precise mechanics remain debated, whether it used hydraulic principles, weighted arms, or another system entirely. Modern recreations vary, but one built in 2005 by a team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences successfully detected simulated quakes using a replica pendulum design. Perhaps the most poignant detail isn't the device's sophistication, but its philosophy. Unlike today's sterile scientific instruments, Zhang Heng's creation married form and function, dragons symbolizing imperial authority, frogs representing water's stability in Chinese cosmology. This wasn't just engineering, it was storytelling in bronze, a reminder that the best innovations don't just solve problems, they help us reimagine our place in the world. As skyscrapers today sway on seismic dampers inspired by ancient principles, the dragons still whisper. Sometimes the future is rediscovery. Beneath the scorching deserts of ancient Persia, an invisible network of veins pulsed with life-giving water, a hidden masterpiece of engineering called the Canat. While other civilizations built towering aqueducts, Persian engineers worked in reverse, tunneling deep into the earth to create a sustainable water system that turned barren landscapes into blooming oases. Picture this, a mother well dug into the foothills, tapping into underground aquifers, then a gently sloping tunnel, sometimes stretching 40 miles, carving its way through rock and soil with nothing but hand tools and celestial navigation to guide it. Every few hundred feet, vertical shafts drop down like stitches in the Earth's fabric, serving dual purposes, hauling out excavated debris and funneling fresh air to the laborers below. The slope was everything just steep enough to let gravity pull the water forward, but shallow enough to prevent erosion. 1 degree too steep and the tunnel would collapse, too flat and the water would stagnate. The brilliance of the Canat wasn't just in its construction, but in its foresight. Unlike open canals that lost half their water to evaporation under the desert sun, these underground channels preserved every precious drop. The soil itself acted as a natural filter, removing impurities before the water emerged cool and clean into courtyards and fields. Some Canats even incorporated ice pits, where winter's cold air circulated through the tunnels to create year-round refrigeration. Communities flourished around these outlets, with water rights governed by intricate time-sharing systems measured by sundials or water clocks. In Yazd, a city surrounded by salt flats, Canats enabled the cultivation of pomegranates and saffron, while in Gonabod, one system has flowed uninterrupted for over 2,700 years, outlasting empires. But perhaps the Canats' most revolutionary impact was social. Because digging required cooperation across villages, the technology became a blueprint for community governance. Teams of skilled laborers called mukanis passed their expertise down through generations, developing specialized tools like the Chak-e-Kanat, a pulley system for lifting heavy loads. When Alexander the Great encountered Canats in Persia, he was so impressed he commissioned their spread across his empire from Egypt to Central Asia. Even today, modern hydrologists study these tunnels to combat water scarcity, marveling at how ancient engineers harnessed groundwater without pumps or fossil fuels. The real magic lies in the Canat's silence. While Roman aqueducts announced their grandeur with soaring arches, Persian water systems whispered, hidden beneath the sand. They required no monuments, no inscriptions, just the quiet gurgle of water in a desert garden, proof that the most enduring solutions often work in the dark. As climate change tightens its grip on arid regions, the Canat's legacy resurfaces, a reminder that sustainability isn't a modern innovation, but an ancient art waiting to be rediscovered. At the heart of the Yucatan jungle, the Mayan pyramid of El Castillo doesn't just rise toward the sky, it dances with it. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, a serpent of light slithers down its northern staircase, a shadowy illusion created by the precise angle of the sun striking the terraced edges. This wasn't decorative whimsy, it was celestial engineering at its most poetic. The pyramid's 4 staircases each boast 91 steps, totaling 364. Add the central platform as the final step, and you have a stone embodiment of the solar year. But the Maya didn't stop there. The entire structure functions as a colossal sundial, with corners positioned to cast distinct shadow patterns that mark the solstices, equinoxes, and even the agricultural cycles tied to the rainy season. What's astonishing is how layered their astronomical coding was. At Capon's Temple of the Inscriptions, narrow windows align with Venus's most extreme rising and setting points over an 8-year cycle. A planet the Maya tracked with such precision their calculations were off by just 2 hours per century. Meanwhile, in Uxmal, the governor's palace aligns not with true north, but with the southernmost rise of Venus, a deliberate choice that turned the building into a permanent celestial marker. These weren't passive observations, they were active collaborations between architect and cosmos, where every angle held meaning. The real genius lies in the adaptability of their designs. Unlike rigid Western calendars, Mayan systems interwove multiple cycles. The 260-day Tzolk'in ritual calendar harmonized with the 365-day Hob solar year, creating a 52-year calendar round that kept their timekeeping in sync. At Tzolk'in, the Temple of the Seven Dolls was rebuilt multiple times, each iteration fine-tuning its alignment to correct for the gradual shift in Earth's axis over centuries. This wasn't just maintenance, it was a living science where structures evolved alongside human understanding of the heavens. But perhaps the most profound revelation isn't their accuracy, it's their philosophy. While modern astronomy separates science from spirituality, the Maya saw no such divide. A pyramid wasn't just an observatory, It was a portal where rulers communed with deities through celestial events. The ball court at Chichén Itzá, positioned to mirror the Pleiades' descent into the underworld, turned a sporting arena into a stage for cosmic drama. Today, as astrophysicists use supercomputers to model the universe, the Maya whisper across time with a different lesson: that the greatest discoveries happen when we stop observing the sky and start conversing with it. Stonehenge's blue stones weigh up to 4 tons each, yet their origins trace back to the Preseli Hills in Wales, a staggering 150 miles away. How did Neolithic engineers without wheels or draft animals orchestrate such a monumental relocation? The answer lies in a combination of ingenuity and intimate knowledge of the landscape. Recent excavations have uncovered traces of wooden sledges and smooth trackways, suggesting teams hauled these massive stones on greased timber rails, possibly using animal fat to reduce friction. But the real breakthrough came when researchers noticed something peculiar. Many of the proposed overland routes from Wales to Salisbury Plain align with ancient river systems. This discovery sparked a radical theory. What if the blue stones didn't just travel by land, but by water? Experimental archaeologists demonstrated that tying empty animal skins to the stones made them buoyant enough to float down rivers during seasonal floods. At key points like the Avon River, the journey may have shifted to a combination of rolling and rafting, with communities along the route contributing labor as part of a ceremonial pilgrimage. The logistics would have required precise timing, moving stones during wet seasons when waterways were navigable, then switching to sledges as the land dried. Even more fascinating is the possibility that Stonehenge's builders leveraged glacial history. Some geologists argue that glaciers during the last ice age may have carried blue stones closer to Salisbury Plain, leaving them scattered across the landscape like a cosmic breadcrumb trail. If true, ancient engineers didn't just move stones, they read the land like a map, recognizing these glacial outliers as sacred gifts from the earth itself. But the true marvel isn't just transportation, it's the cultural coordination behind it. Moving a single blue stone would have required hundreds of people working in unison, likely during seasonal gatherings when scattered tribes converged. The stones themselves may have been chosen for their unique properties. When struck, some blue stones produce metallic ringing sounds, leading scholars to speculate they were valued for their acoustic qualities in rituals. What emerges isn't just a feat of engineering, but a testament to shared purpose. Stonehenge wasn't built by a single genius, it was a collective dream carved in stone, where every mile traveled, every river crossed, wove distant communities into a single story. As laser scans now reveal subtle chisel marks and directional clues on the stones, we're not just decoding how they moved, we're listening to an ancient conversation between humans and the land, one that whispers, monuments aren't just placed, they're earned. The hanging gardens of Babylon haunt history like a mirage, described in vivid detail by ancient writers, yet vanishing without a trace in the archaeological record. Greek historians like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus painted them as a marvel of engineering, tiered terraces teeming with exotic plants, their roots watered by a hidden network of screws, pumps, and pipes that defied the arid Mesopotamian climate. If these gardens truly existed, their irrigation system would have been nothing short of revolutionary, lifting water from the Euphrates River high into the air without the aid of aqueducts or gravity-fed channels. The mystery deepens when you consider the technology required. Archimedes' screw, often credited as the solution, wouldn't be invented for centuries after the garden's supposed construction under King Nebuchadnezzar II around 600 years before the Common Era. Some theories suggest a chain pump, a loop of buckets mounted on a rotating wheel, could have transported water upward, while others propose an elaborate system of reed pipes and bitumen-sealed cisterns, using capillary action to distribute moisture evenly. The descriptions even mention a mysterious Archimedean spiral, though how Babylonians mastered such advanced hydraulics remains unexplained. Yet the greatest enigma isn't how they might have worked, it's where they stood. Despite centuries of excavation, no definitive evidence of the gardens has been found in Babylon. Not a single inscription from Nebuchadnezzar's reign mentions them, and the city's flat terrain lacks the natural elevation described in Greek accounts. This absence has led some scholars to propose an astonishing alternative. The gardens weren't in Babylon at all. Recent research points to Nineveh, the Assyrian capital, where King Sennacherib's palace inscriptions boast of an unrivaled paradise watered by bronze screws and aqueducts. Could the Greeks have conflated two legendary cities over time? What's undeniable is the gardens' enduring power as a symbol. Whether real or imagined, they represent humanity's timeless urge to reshape nature into something transcendent. The very idea, a lush oasis suspended above the desert, challenges us to reconsider what ancient engineers might have achieved. Modern attempts to recreate the gardens using period-appropriate technology reveal just how ambitious the feat would have been, requiring thousands of laborers to maintain constant irrigation against evaporation and soil erosion. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between history and legend. Even if the Hanging Gardens never graced Babylon, their legacy fertilized something equally profound: the realization that the ancient world's engineering prowess might be far greater than the ruins alone suggest. After all, absence of evidence isn't always evidence of absence, especially when dealing with wonders meant to defy the very limits of belief. Roman roads didn't just connect cities, they conquered time. Imagine a network stretching over 250,000 miles, from the damp highlands of Scotland to the sun-baked deserts of North Africa, all built to the same exacting standard. Each mile began with a trench dug 3 feet deep, filled layer by layer, large stones for drainage, crushed gravel for stability, sand to cushion, and finally, interlocking slabs of volcanic basalt fitted so tightly they needed no mortar. The result, highways that could support armies, merchants, and messengers for centuries, some still bearing traffic today. But the real genius wasn't just in the construction, it was in the thinking. Roman engineers didn't just build roads, they built systems. Every 11 miles, way stations allowed couriers to swap horses without breaking stride, while mile markers engraved stone pillars let travelers calculate distances like ancient GPS. Curves were minimized for efficiency, gradients carefully calculated so ox carts could climb without strain, and drainage ditches flanking each road kept surfaces dry even in downpours. Half a world away, another network was threading civilizations together: the Silk Road. Unlike Rome's regimented highways, these routes adapted to the land's whispers, following river valleys and mountain passes forged by nature. But don't mistake flexibility for fragility. In the Taklamakan Desert, engineers laid roads atop reed mats to prevent sinking into shifting sands, while in the Pamir Mountains, they carved staircases into cliffs for pack animals. The real marvel was how these pathways facilitated more than trade, they transmitted ideas. Chinese papermaking traveled west to Samarkand, while Persian glassmaking techniques flowed east, all because anonymous engineers had turned geography into a conduit. What's striking is how both systems solved the same problem differently. Rome centralized, imposing order on the landscape with uniform roads that mirrored its imperial vision. The Silk Road decentralized, weaving through political boundaries like water finding cracks in stone. Yet both shared a profound understanding of terrain. Roman surveyors used gromers to align roads with celestial precision, while Silk Road guides read stars and sand dunes with equal fluency. Perhaps the greatest lesson lies in their legacy. Modern highways still follow Roman principles of layered foundations, and global shipping routes echo the Silk Road's web of connections. These ancient engineers didn't just move goods, they moved history, proving that the most enduring infrastructure isn't just about stone and dirt, but about the invisible lines it draws between people. When Emperor Justinian first stepped into the completed Hagia Sophia in the year 537, he reportedly whispered, "Solomon, I have surpassed you." And who could blame him? The dome soaring above seemed to defy not just gravity, but the very limits of human ambition. Spanning 180 feet across and rising nearly 200 feet high, this architectural marvel wasn't just a roof, it was a revolution in stone. What made it truly extraordinary wasn't its size alone, but how Byzantine engineers solved a puzzle that had stumped builders for centuries: how to place a circular dome atop a square base without collapsing the entire structure. The secret lay in 4 curved triangles called pendentives, an innovation as elegant as it was ingenious. Picture a dome resting on 4 arches, with the gaps between them forming spherical triangles that gracefully transitioned the square into a circle. These pendentives didn't just fill space, they redistributed the dome's crushing weight downward along the arches and into massive piers, bypassing the weaker walls entirely. It was like turning the entire building into a geometric stress relief system where every element worked in harmony, but the Byzantines didn't stop there. They lightened the dome's load by using porous bricks made from volcanic ash and stacked them in concentric rings, each layer slightly offset to create a self-supporting curve as the mortar dried. Then there were the 40 windows circling the dome's base, a stroke of brilliance that served dual purposes. Not only did they flood the interior with ethereal light, making the dome appear to float, but they also reduced the structure's weight at its most vulnerable point. The effect was transformative. As sunlight streamed through, the gilded mosaics shimmered like living fire, while the dome's shallow curvature created an acoustic phenomenon where chants seemed to emanate from the heavens themselves. What's often overlooked is how experimental this all was. When the original dome collapsed in an earthquake just 20 years later, engineers didn't scrap the design, they refined it. The rebuilt dome was slightly steeper, reinforced with hidden buttresses and ribs that channeled forces more efficiently. For nearly 1,000 years, it remained the largest enclosed space in the world, a testament to the Byzantine blend of artistry and calculus. Modern engineers still study Hagia Sophia's secrets, from its flexible lime mortar that allows slight movement during tremors to the way its proportions echo natural harmonics. But perhaps its greatest legacy is how it redefined sacred space, not as a boundary between earth and sky, but as a living dialogue between the two. When Ottoman architects later adapted its principles for mosques like the Blue Mosque, they weren't just copying a design. They were inheriting a vision that architecture could make the divine tangible, one perfect curve at a time. Rising from the savannah like a mirage of stone, the walls of Great Zimbabwe defy both time and expectation. These towering enclosures, some reaching 30 feet high, were assembled without a drop of mortar, each granite block carefully selected, shaped, and stacked with such precision that even after 8 centuries, many joints still refuse a blade's edge. But the real wonder isn't just their endurance, it's how the builders turned geology into geometry. The stones weren't quarried in the traditional sense. Instead, workers harvested naturally exfoliated granite slabs flat and wedge-shaped from the surrounding hills, leveraging the land's own weathering patterns to minimize cutting. This wasn't just efficiency, it was a dialogue with the earth where every boulder's natural form dictated its place in the wall. Walk through the ruins today and you'll notice something astonishing about the drainage. Even during the heaviest rains, water never pools within the enclosures. The secret lies in the subtle outward tilt of every wall, a gradient so slight it's invisible to the naked eye, yet calculated to shed rainfall efficiently. Beneath the surface, layers of gravel and sand acted as ancient French drains, channeling moisture away from foundations and those iconic curved walls. Their serpentine shapes weren't merely aesthetic, they distributed structural stress evenly, preventing weak points that straight lines might create. The sophistication extends beyond engineering. The entire city was zoned with purpose, the hill complex for royalty, the great enclosure for ceremonies, the valley ruins for artisans, all connected by pathways that followed natural contours rather than fighting them. Archaeologists have found evidence of advanced goldsmithing workshops, iron smelting furnaces, and even a trading network that stretched as far as China and Persia. This wasn't an isolated marvel. It was the heart of a civilization that mastered commerce, metallurgy, and urban planning long before European contact. What's most poignant is what the ruins don't reveal. Unlike Egyptian pyramids or Roman temples, Great Zimbabwe bears no inscriptions glorifying kings or gods. The builders left no written records, just the silent testimony of their craftsmanship. Modern attempts to recreate their dry stone techniques have proven humbling. Even with laser levels and modern tools, masons struggle to match the stability of the original walls. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson whispered by these stones, that true innovation doesn't need to shout its name. It simply stands unwavering while centuries pass by. Deep in the sweltering jungles of Mexico's Gulf Coast, 17 stone faces stare silently across the centuries, each one a mystery carved in basalt. The Olmec colossal heads, some standing over 9 feet tall and weighing as much as 50 tons, weren't just sculptures, they were logistical miracles. Imagine quarrying a single block of volcanic rock from the Tuxtla Mountains, then moving it 50 miles through flooded wetlands and dense rainforest, all without wheels, without pack animals, without metal tools. The Olmecs didn't just defy the limits of their era, they rewrote the rulebook on what was possible. How did they do it? The answer lies in a combination of brute force and brilliant ingenuity. Archaeologists have found evidence of massive rope bundles made from tough henequen fibers, suggesting teams of hundreds dragged these monoliths atop log rollers. But the real breakthrough might have been water. During seasonal floods, the Olmecs could have floated the basalt blocks along river networks on rafts, turning nature's cycles into a transportation superhighway. Some heads even bear grooves along their bases, possible attachment points for ropes that stabilized them during transit. This wasn't just moving stone, it was choreographing a ballet between human labor and hydrological rhythms. What's truly astonishing is the precision of the carving itself. Using nothing but stone tools, Olmec artisans transformed rough boulders into lifelike portraits with distinct facial features, helmets, dimples, even individualized earlobes. The basalt's hardness would have required endless hours of pecking and grinding, yet the surfaces show no signs of hesitation marks. These weren't trial runs, they were masterworks executed with unwavering confidence. But the greatest enigma isn't how they were made, it's why. Unlike later Mesoamerican monuments glorifying gods or kings, the heads radiate a quiet humanity. Some theories suggest they depicted revered rulers or ball players, while others see them as ancestral guardians. Their placement is equally intriguing. Several were carefully buried in lines, as if part of a ritual cycle we've yet to decipher. Modern laser scans have revealed hidden markings beneath the patina, possible clues to a writing system predating the Maya by centuries. The Olmecs left no written records, no grand cities. Just these silent sentinels, their stoic faces hinting at a civilization far more complex than we've dared to imagine. When you stand before one, you're not just looking at art. You're witnessing the birth of Mesoamerican engineering, a legacy carved in stone, waiting for us to read between the grooves. Beneath the shifting sands of Egypt's eastern desert, miners chiseled into bedrock by firelight over 5,000 years ago, not for gold or jewels, but for copper, the metal that would ignite the Bronze Age. Their tools were simple: stone hammers, wooden wedges, and fires set against rock faces to weaken the stone before quarrying. But their methods revealed an intimate understanding of geology. They followed green-stained veins of malachite like breadcrumbs, knowing these surface clues led to richer deposits below. In the Timna Valley, archaeologists have found shafts plunging over 100 feet straight down, with notched footholds carved into the walls and timber supports preventing collapse, a prehistoric elevator shaft for hauling ore basket by basket. What's truly remarkable is how these early miners transformed raw materials into precision tools. At the Wadi El Jaria site, grinding stones still bear grooves where workers pulverized ore, while crucibles nearby show traces of temperatures reaching 1,000 degrees Celsius, evidence of sophisticated smelting techniques. The Egyptians didn't just dig, they engineered entire production chains, from identifying deposits to refining metal, all without so much as an iron chisel. Meanwhile, in Roman Spain, mining reached industrial scales that wouldn't be matched until the 19th century. At Los Medulas, engineers devised ruina montium, literally wrecking mountains, a hydraulic system so powerful it could dismantle entire hillsides. They built aqueducts spanning 50 miles to funnel water into reservoirs high above gold-bearing cliffs. When released, the torrents tore through sediment, separating gold from debris in a cascade of sluices and settling ponds. Pliny the Elder described the technique with awe, noting how the mountains seemed to bleed gold under the onslaught of human ingenuity. But Roman innovation didn't stop at brute force. In Cornwall, they sank shafts 600 feet deep to reach tin deposits, using timber supports and drainage adits that still astonish modern engineers. Their secret, a double-wheeled device called the Dere Metallica lift, powered by slaves treading like hamsters in a wheel, hauling ore and water in a continuous cycle. These weren't just mines, they were subterranean factories, complete with ventilation shafts that harnessed natural air currents to keep tunnels breathable. The true legacy of these ancient miners lies in their problem-solving. When Egyptian copper deposits dwindled, they launched expeditions to the Sinai, navigating deadly deserts to secure new sources. When Roman miners encountered groundwater flooding their tunnels, they invented the Archimedean screw pump to reclaim their dig sites. Every challenge spawned an innovation, each one a stepping stone toward the technologies that shape our world today. Standing in these ancient pits now, you can almost hear the echoes of picks striking stone, the shouts of workers coordinating in darkness. These miners didn't just extract metal, they forged the very foundations of civilization, one stubborn layer of rock at a time. While the Egyptians built pyramids and the Romans paved highways, the Phoenicians were mastering a different kind of engineering, one that didn't conquer land but tamed the sea. Picture a vessel with a keel carved from a single cedar trunk, its hull planks fitted together like puzzle pieces and sealed with tar-soaked linen. These weren't just boats, they were floating fortresses of trade, capable of hauling tons of cargo across the Mediterranean's unpredictable waters. The Phoenicians didn't just build ships, they engineered them for survival. Their signature biremes, double-decked galleys with sails for distance and oars for maneuverability, could slice through waves at speeds that outpaced pirates and storms alike. But the real innovation lay below the waterline. a weighted keel that acted like a pendulum, stabilizing the ship even when laden with ivory, glass, or the legendary Tyrian purple dye that made their fortune. Meanwhile, in the frostbitten fjords of Scandinavia, Viking shipwrights were solving a different set of challenges. Where Phoenician ships were built for cargo, Viking longships were designed for conquest and exploration, sleek as knives, with shallow drafts that let them glide up rivers or onto beaches. The secret to their flexibility: overlapping planks fastened with iron rivets, creating a hull that could flex with the waves rather than fight them. This clinker-built technique wasn't just about speed, it was about adaptability. A longship could cross the North Atlantic's brutal swells, then navigate the shallowest tributaries of the Volga, all while carrying 40 warriors and their supplies. The Gokstad ship, excavated in Norway, reveals even more ingenuity. Its mast could be lowered in minutes for river travel, and the rudder wasn't fixed to the stern but mounted on the side for quicker turns. What's astonishing is how both cultures tailored their ships to their ambitions. Phoenician vessels featured high curved prows to deflect Mediterranean waves, while Viking ships had symmetrical ends to reverse direction without turning, a necessity when raiding coastal villages. Both used square sails woven from wool or linen, but the Vikings added a revolutionary detail: reinforcing strips called batios that let them sail closer to the wind, effectively inventing the first upwind sailing technology. Yet the true testament to their engineering lies in the distances they covered. Phoenician traders reached Britain for tin and possibly circumnavigated Africa 2,000 years before Europeans managed it. Viking longships crossed the Atlantic to Newfoundland, a journey that would take Columbus another 5 centuries to replicate. These weren't just voyages, they were calculated risks made possible by ships so advanced their designs still influence boat building today. The legacy of these shipbuilders isn't just in wood and sailcloth, it's in the unshakable belief that the horizon wasn't a boundary, but an invitation. Whether for trade or exploration, their vessels carried something far more precious than cargo: the audacity to redefine what was possible. The shimmering blades of Damascus steel weren't just weapons, they were whispers of a lost science, folded into metal so finely it resembled flowing water. Warriors from the Crusades to the Mughal Empire swore these swords could slice through a falling silk scarf or shatter lesser blades without losing their edge. But what made this steel so extraordinary wasn't just its legendary sharpness, it was the paradox at its heart. Unlike brittle modern alloys that sacrifice flexibility for hardness, Damascus steel somehow achieved both. The secret lay in its distinctive wavy patterns, not etched onto the surface but woven through the metal itself like the grain of a living thing. Modern metallurgists have spent decades trying to crack the code. Using electron microscopes, they've discovered something astonishing. The steel contains carbon nanotubes, microscopic structures so advanced, we only learned to synthesize them in labs in the 1990s. These tubes, likely formed accidentally through a precise combination of ore composition and forging techniques, gave the blades their supernatural resilience. The raw material came from Wootz steel ingots mined in India, packed with traces of vanadium and other rare elements that acted like a secret recipe. But the true magic happened in the forge. Artisans would heat, hammer, and fold the metal hundreds of times, creating layers so thin they measured in the nanometers. This painstaking process didn't just strengthen the blade, it transformed its very structure, aligning crystals in a way that dispersed stress like a shock absorber. Yet the most baffling part isn't what we've discovered, it's what we've lost. Despite knowing the ingredients, modern attempts to recreate Damascus steel consistently fall short. The missing piece might lie in the details we dismiss as superstition. the timing of folds during specific moon phases, the use of certain plant extracts in quenching liquids, or even the rhythm of the hammer strikes passed down through generations like a sacred chant. Some researchers believe the steel's properties depended on slow cooling in desert winds, allowing crystalline structures to form in ways industrial furnaces can't replicate. What's haunting is how this knowledge vanished. By the 1700s, the last masters of Damascus steel took their techniques to the grave, victims of shifting trade routes and industrialized warfare. Today, the closest we've come is pattern-welded steel, a crude imitation where layers are welded rather than grown organically. Standing before a genuine Damascus blade in a museum, you're not just looking at metal. You're seeing the ghost of an entire discipline, one that reminds us how much brilliance can slip through the cracks of time. The real tragedy, we may never know if these smiths understood the nanotechnology they'd mastered, or if they were simply following a tradition whose deepest secrets died with them. Deep beneath the golden sands of the Valley of the Kings, Tutankhamun's tomb lay hidden like a locked vault, its entrance buried under rubble, its corridors twisting in deceptive simplicity. This wasn't just a burial chamber, it was a masterclass in ancient security engineering designed to outwit tomb raiders for eternity. The Boy King's resting place may be the most famous, but its design was no outlier. Egyptian tomb architects operated on a simple principle: the greater the treasure, the more elaborate the deception. Take the Pyramid of Amenemhat III at Hawara, its labyrinthine corridors so complex that even the Roman historian Strabo wrote of getting lost in its endless winding passages. The tricks began the moment robbers broke through the outer walls. False doors carved with intricate spells led nowhere, while real entrances were concealed beneath innocuous floor slabs or behind meticulously painted scenes of the afterlife. Some tombs featured dropping ceilings, massive stone blocks rigged to collapse if a thief disturbed hidden triggers. In the tomb of Pharaoh Seti I, engineers installed a decoy burial chamber complete with an empty sarcophagus, while the real crypt lay hidden behind a false wall, its location revealed only by the faintest unevenness in the plaster. Even the air itself could be a weapon. Some shafts were deliberately flooded or filled with poisonous gases like hydrogen sulfide, released when intruders dislodged carefully placed seals. Yet the true genius of these designs wasn't just in their cunning, it was in their spiritual precision. Every trap, every hidden passage served a dual purpose. The diagonal shafts in the Great Pyramid, they weren't just ventilation channels, they aligned with celestial bodies to guide the pharaoh's soul to the stars. The bent axis of many tomb corridors, a symbolic representation of the winding path to the underworld. Even the materials held meaning. Cedar beams from Lebanon weren't chosen just for durability. Their resin was believed to repel evil spirits, while the reddish quartzite in burial chambers symbolized the life-giving rays of the sun god Ra. Modern archaeologists still stumble upon new layers of deception. Infrared scans of Tutankhamun's tomb in 2015 revealed anomalies suggesting hidden chambers, possibly holding the undisturbed burial of Queen Nefertiti. Meanwhile, robotic probes sent into the Great Pyramid's narrow air shafts have discovered miniature doors with copper handles. Sealed for 45 centuries, their purpose still debated. Were they ritual passageways for the king's spirit, or access points to yet undiscovered rooms? What's haunting is how these tombs mirror the Egyptians' obsession with eternity. The same engineers who calculated load-bearing stresses for 100-ton sarcophagi also inscribed protective spells on door jambs, blending physics and faith into a single discipline. When a pharaoh's architect designed a false corridor or a collapsing ceiling, he wasn't just building a trap, he was crafting a theological argument in stone that some secrets are meant to outlast time itself. While modern concrete crumbles after decades under seawater, Roman harbors like Portus Cossanus still stand strong after 2,000 years, their submerged piers defying tides, storms, and time itself. The difference: a pinch of volcanic dust. Roman engineers didn't just mix sand and lime, they added pozzolana, a gritty ash from the eruptions of Mount Vesuvius, creating a material that didn't just resist decay, it actively fought back. Modern scientists analyzing samples under electron microscopes made a startling discovery. Roman concrete contains rare mineral clusters called strettlingite. When seawater seeps into microscopic cracks, it reacts with these crystals, forming new minerals that fill the gaps like biological scar tissue. Essentially, the concrete heals itself. The recipe was no accident. Roman builders documented their mixtures meticulously, with Vitruvius describing how volcanic ash from Pozzuoli produced mortar that not only endures but even hardens underwater. What they couldn't have known was the chemistry behind it. The pozzolana's high silica content reacts with lime and water to form a binder stronger than modern Portland cement, while aluminum-rich minerals in the ash create those self-repairing crystals. Even more impressive, the Romans tailored their mixes for specific environments. For coastal structures, they used ash with higher salt resistance, while terrestrial projects incorporated crushed pottery shards, a precursor to modern recycled aggregates. Today, researchers at the University of Utah are reverse engineering these ancient techniques, developing Roman-inspired concrete that could revolutionize seawalls and nuclear waste containment. The challenge isn't just replicating the formula, it's embracing a fundamentally different philosophy. Modern concrete prioritizes speed and compressive strength, curing within hours. Roman concrete took months to reach full strength, its slow chemical reactions yielding unmatched longevity. There's poetry in the contrast. Where we build for the next decade, they built for millennia. Perhaps the most humbling revelation came from a study of Trajan's markets. X-rays revealed that cracks propagating through 2,000-year-old walls stopped dead when they hit lime clasts, tiny lumps of unmixed limestone once considered flaws. These defects turned out to be reservoirs of reactive material, ready to dissolve and recrystallize whenever moisture invaded. Our pursuit of perfect homogeneity might be the very weakness Roman engineers avoided. As climate change erodes modern infrastructure, the past whispers an unexpected lesson. Sometimes progress means looking backward. The Pantheon's unreinforced concrete dome, still the world's largest after 19 centuries, isn't just a relic, it's a challenge. What if durability mattered more than profit margins? What if buildings like forests grew stronger with age? The answers might lie not in futuristic labs, but in the ashes of volcanoes that darkened skies 2 millennia ago. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building filled with scrolls. It was a living, breathing engine of innovation, where the greatest minds of the ancient world collided to solve problems no one had dared to tackle before. Picture a place where mathematicians scribbled equations on papyrus beside engineers sketching hydraulic systems, where astronomers debated celestial mechanics while physicians dissected texts on human anatomy. This was more than a library. It was the world's first think tank, a crucible where theoretical knowledge met practical application in ways that would shape civilizations for centuries. Among its halls, Archimedes likely refined his theories of buoyancy. Hero of Alexandria tinkered with prototypes of steam engines, and Euclid's geometric principles took form, ideas so foundational we still teach them today. But what made Alexandria truly revolutionary wasn't just its collection of texts, it was its systems. The library employed teams of scribes to copy and translate works from every known culture, creating standardized editions that preserved knowledge across languages. They developed early cataloging methods, organizing scrolls by subject and author in a proto-Dewey Decimal System that allowed scholars to navigate an estimated 400,000 volumes. Some historians believe the library even housed a prototype of a card catalog, wooden tags attached to scroll cases with summaries of their contents. This wasn't just storage, it was information science centuries ahead of its time. The real tragedy lies in what we know was lost. The library's destruction, whether by fire, warfare, or gradual neglect, erased untold engineering marvels. Take the astrolabe designs of Hypatia, which may have rivaled medieval instruments in precision, or the maritime navigation charts that guided Greek ships to India using monsoon winds. Even more heartbreaking are the gaps in our understanding of their everyday innovations. How did Alexandrian engineers purify drinking water for the city's million residents? What secrets lay in their treatises on urban planning, now reduced to passing mentions in surviving fragments? Modern archaeology offers glimpses of their brilliance. Divers exploring Alexandria's harbor have recovered artifacts suggesting the library's influence extended beyond its walls. A sunken ship's cargo included precision surgical tools alongside scroll cases, hinting at how medical knowledge was disseminated. Nearby, the ruins of the Serapeum, the library's daughter institution, reveal niches that may have housed mechanical models for teaching engineering principles. These weren't just books on shelves, they were interactive tools for hands-on learning. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't what was lost, but how far we might have come. The steam engine's hero, described as temple curiosities, could have industrialized the ancient world. Archimedes' war machines, if fully developed, might have rewritten military history. The library's legacy isn't just in the flames that consumed it, but in the chilling realization of how fragile human progress can be, and how much brighter our past might have shone had those scrolls survived. History often paints ancient engineering as a male-dominated field, but scratch beneath the surface, and you'll find women shaping the material world in ways we're only beginning to appreciate. Take Hypatia of Alexandria, the renowned mathematician and philosopher who, in the 4th century, didn't just teach abstract theory. She designed astrolabes and hydrometers, instruments that blended celestial navigation with practical hydraulics. Her workshop was a hub of innovation where parchment met precision tools, and where her students, both men and women, learned to measure the immeasurable. Yet Hypatia wasn't an anomaly. In the shadows of grand monuments and treatises, women across cultures left fingerprints on engineering marvels, their contributions obscured by time and tradition. Consider the case of Enheduanna, the Akkadian high priestess who, over 4,000 years ago, not only composed sacred hymns but also oversaw the construction of temple complexes in Ur. Cuneiform tablets hint at her role in calculating material quantities and coordinating labor, an ancient project manager wielding both spiritual and logistical authority. Or look to the Minoan civilization, where frescoes depict women supervising the intricate plumbing systems of Knossos, their hands guiding the flow of water through terracotta pipes with the same care as modern civil engineers. Even in Rome, where women were barred from formal engineering roles, inscriptions reveal female patrons funding aqueducts and bridges, their names etched into stone alongside the architects they empowered. The real tragedy isn't just that these stories were forgotten, it's how their absence distorts our understanding of innovation. Ancient engineering wasn't a linear march of lone geniuses. It was a tapestry woven by countless hands, threads of insight passed through generations regardless of gender. In China, Ban Zhao, a 1st century scholar, penned treatises on mathematics that informed hydraulic engineering for flood control. while in the Andes, anonymous Quechua women likely contributed to the seismic-resistant masonry techniques that made Inca walls indestructible. Their knowledge wasn't written in treatises but embodied in practice, taught mother to daughter alongside the rhythms of daily life. Modern archaeology is slowly unearthing these hidden legacies. At Teotihuacan, analyses of skeletal remains near workshop areas suggest women crafted the elaborate obsidian tools used in construction. In Viking settlements, textile artifacts reveal loom weights engineered for tension control, a precursor to the pulley systems that would later hoist cathedral stones. Even the legendary hanging gardens of Babylon, if they existed, may owe their lushness to the unnamed women who perfected irrigation botany, coaxing exotic plants to thrive in arid soil. What's most revealing is how these women worked within and around the constraints of their eras. Hypatia used her position as a teacher to mentor female students in applied mathematics, while Byzantine empresses like Theodora quietly influenced architectural projects, embedding feminist symbolism into Hagia Sophia's mosaics. Their achievements whisper a radical truth: innovation doesn't care who holds the chisel or the pen, only that the hand is steady and the vision clear. As we piece together their fragmented histories, we're not just correcting the record, we're reclaiming a richer, more honest narrative of human ingenuity, one where every mind that dared to build belongs in the light. The fingerprints of ancient engineers are everywhere in our modern world, not as faded relics but as living blueprints. Look at the Burj Khalifa's tapering silhouette, echoing the stepped pyramids of Mesopotamia, or the earthquake-resistant foundations of Tokyo's skyscrapers, mirroring the Incas' interlocking stonework. Even something as mundane as your city's sewer system owes its design to the covered drains of Mohenjo-Daro, engineered 5,000 years ago. These aren't coincidences, they're proof that the past never truly disappears. When Roman aqueducts inspired New York's Croton water system in the 1800s, or when the Pantheon's unreinforced concrete dome informed the design of the U.S. Capitol, what we're seeing isn't imitation, it's conversation. What's striking is how often modern breakthroughs turn out to be rediscoveries. Take passive cooling, a buzzword in sustainable architecture today. The same principles that keep Dubai's Al-Bahar towers shaded with moving facades were mastered by Persians millennia ago, with their wind catchers and Canats systems creating natural air conditioning. Or consider the way suspension bridges like the Golden Gate mirror the vine and bamboo structures built by ancient Chinese engineers who understood tension and flexibility long before calculus could explain it. Even 3D printing, hailed as revolutionary, finds its precursor in the layered construction of Hagia Sophia's dome, where each ring of lightweight bricks was essentially printed in place. But the most profound legacy isn't in techniques, it's in philosophy. Ancient engineers worked with nature, not against it. The Maya aligned cities with celestial events. The Romans harnessed volcanic ash to self-healing concrete. The Nabateans carved Petra's water channels to follow geological faults. Compare that to our often adversarial relationship with the environment, where we bulldoze hills and fight floods with brittle barriers. Perhaps that's why firms like Arup now employ archaeologists, studying how the Anasazi stored grain in desert cliffs to inspire climate-resilient food storage. The past isn't just a museum, it's a mentor. Perhaps the greatest lesson lies in their approach to failure. When the first dome of Hagia Sophia collapsed, Byzantine engineers didn't abandon the vision, they refined it. When Inca terraces eroded, they adapted their drainage systems. There's humility in that persistence, a quality often lost in our rush for quick fixes. Today, as engineers confront climate change, some are turning to these ancient playbooks, reviving rammed earth construction or terracing to prevent landslides. The irony is poignant. The future of innovation might depend on listening to voices we once dismissed as primitive. Standing before these ancient marvels, we're reminded that engineering isn't just about solving problems, it's about asking the right questions. The pyramids don't just challenge us to wonder how they were built, but why. The aqueducts invite us to consider who gets access to resources and who decides. In a world obsessed with speed and scale, the silent endurance of these structures whispers a counterpoint. That true progress isn't measured in years, but in millennia. The next time you walk down a perfectly graded street or admire a soaring glass tower, look closer. You're not just seeing modern genius, you're witnessing an unbroken chain of curiosity stretching back to the first human who stacked stone upon stone and dreamed of something taller. The forgotten engineers of the ancient world were more than builders. They were visionaries who saw problems as invitations to innovate. Their work wasn't just about stacking stones or carving canals. It was about reshaping humanity's relationship with the impossible. Take the Roman aqueducts, for instance, not just feats of hydraulic engineering, but declarations that a city could thrive in defiance of geography. Or the precision of the Great Pyramid, where a margin of error less than the width of a pinky finger across 13 acres proves that perfection wasn't beyond their reach, even with copper tools and raw manpower. These pioneers didn't have supercomputers or carbon fiber, but they had something equally powerful, an intimate dialogue with the materials and forces around them. What's humbling is how their solutions often surpassed mere functionality. The Maya didn't just track Venus, they wove its cycles into the fabric of their cities, turning astronomy into architecture. The Inca's earthquake-resistant walls weren't just sturdy, they were conversations with the land itself, acknowledging its tremors rather than resisting them. This wasn't engineering as we often think of it today, cold and calculated, but as a fusion of science, art, and spirituality. They understood that to build for eternity, you had to listen as much as you calculated. And yet, history nearly erased them. We know the names of pharaohs and emperors, but who designed the sewer systems that made urban life possible? Who calculated the acoustics of Greek theaters or the optics of lighthouse mirrors? Their anonymity speaks volumes about what societies choose to remember and what we've lost by forgetting. Modern engineers now scour these ancient sites not for treasure, but for wisdom. How did Roman concrete self-heal? How did Polynesian navigators cross oceans without compasses? The answers aren't relics, they're roadmaps. So here's the challenge these ancient minds leave us. Innovation isn't just about newer tools or faster results. It's about seeing the world differently, whether that's noticing how a cactus spine structure could inspire earthquake-resistant buildings, or how termite mounds hold secrets to passive cooling. Their legacy whispers that the next breakthrough might not be in some futuristic lab, but in the overlooked brilliance of the past, which ancient wonder leaves you awestruck. Is it the mathematical poetry of the pyramids or the hydraulic wizardry of Petra's hidden channels? Drop your thoughts below, and if you've enjoyed this dive into humanity's untold engineering sagas, hit subscribe. Our next adventure into history's hidden corners is just around the bend. Until then, keep looking at the world with the same boundless curiosity as those ancient builders did. After all, their greatest lesson wasn't in the stones they left behind, but in the imagination that placed them there.